Well, definitely still a lot of untapped potential there on the continent. Let's get more analysis. I'm now joined in studio by Raymond Gilpin, Dean at the Africa Center for Strategic Studies. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
So let's start with looking at some of the efforts to revamp Africa's mining industry. What are some of the initiatives that have been working so far?
Well, I think a major thing that's been going on across the African continent has been looking at the governance of the mining sector. And as you know, a number of countries are revamping their mining laws to make them more business friendly, to address some of the tariff and non-tariff barriers to investment, and also to upgrade both technology and the infrastructure required. Because across the continent, as you rightly pointed out, there is a lot in terms of mineral resources, but making them commercially viable is the next step that needs to be taken.
And in terms of regulations, which countries are really leading the charge on this?
I think it's difficult to say that a particular country is leading the charge. What we are seeing is a number of countries that have for a long time struggled with governance reform taking specific action. We know that in South Africa, there's a big discussion around the new mining charter. It's being reconsidered after the Chamber of Commerce in South Africa raised a few issues. We know that Ghana is also revisiting its mining code. Nigeria recently did it. So a number of countries are taking the right steps. But then, as you know, having the right mining code is one thing. Implementation and enforcement is another.
Absolutely. Now, we know some of the challenges, starting with mining safety. We know that more awareness has been brought about, and that's brought about some improvements, but you still have some of these mining-related illnesses after a lot of exposure to these minerals, and also fatalities still plaguing the industry. How are regulators responding to those concerns?
That's very difficult. There's two issues going on here. One, there is the issue that a lot of the mines in Africa, particularly the established mining countries, are what you call mature. They're over 50 years old. They need to be upgraded, not just in terms of extraction, but also in terms of safety. But a second thing that's been happening, particularly over the last 5-6 years, is as commodity prices dropped, a number of the mid-sized companies have dropped out of the market. And most of those workers are now in a flourishing informal sector. They're entering disused mines, and they're working in dangerous conditions. So a lot of the illnesses and accidents you see are because you have this growing unregulated sector.
And in terms of the commodities that are drawing the most interest from foreign investors, what are they targeting?
Naturally, hydrocarbons, oil and natural gas. Gold is also getting a bit of attention across the continent. Precious metals, uranium is also getting a bit of attention. And of course, in the DRC and Zambia, both copper and mineral and tin ores like cobalt are getting a lot of attention. And not just from the usual suspects, because we usually think it's either Europe and the United States on the one hand, or China on the other. No, it's a broad base of investors, which I think bodes well. But governance and technology and safety are very important.
Now, one of the concerns when you see a lot of investors coming into these minerals and this mining is that it doesn't trickle down to the local economies and the countries themselves. So what's being done to make sure that they're not being left out?
A lot of the revisions in the mining charters are trying to address this issue. 50 years ago, when most of these mines started, mining was very labor intensive. Today, it is not. And I think most of the countries have really not come to grips with that reality, that the mines are not going to deliver the jobs. However, a few countries are looking at the value chain of mining and seeing various steps in the value chain where you could integrate the local economy. Because everything from services to labor market, there are a lot of things that local industries could do to support mining and create jobs that way. But the days when mining was a huge employer, I think, are behind most African countries. That realization is dawning, and most of the value chain analysis being done in a number of countries is speaking to that.
Certainly a much broader industry than originally we saw. Thank you so much, as always, Raymond Gilpin there, Dean of Africa Center for Strategic Studies.